Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing well out there. Better than your Miami Heat did tonight. Got chin checked there in the fourth quarter. They lose 121-100. Ty Jerome with just an unbelievable performance today. 28 points off the bench. He was 5 of 8 from downtown, and a lot of that damage being done in the fourth quarter. He came out like a Tasmanian devil and just hit everything on the Miami Heat. A 16-point fourth quarter for Ty Jerome. He was flexing. A lot of it on Tyler Hero today. And the Cavs run away in the fourth quarter. And what was a game where Miami was a bit on the hamster wheel. You know, they really tried their darndest to like get it to 6, 7. I think they got it to 7. The big swing in the fourth quarter, the Miami Heat were able to get it to 7 after a Bam Adebayo 3-ball. And then Spo decides, all right, Bam hasn't gotten a rest yet. Put him out. Let's see if we can put Kel'el Ware out there. So Hero and Ware come in, and right after that, I think it was a 7-2 run. So it goes from a 7-point lead for the Cavs to a 12-point lead, and Miami really just could not gather. And so I'm going to go big picture on this from this standpoint. One, Donovan Mitchell, obviously amazing. I think up until the third quarter, I mean, he was just dicing Miami up and really just brought a lot of extra effort plays, diving on the ball. He tied up Bam for loose balls. He got one at the end there to send a Garland absolute double dagger 3-ball. And this was on top of him just pouring in 30 points today. And I think this is an interesting one because I just want to be clear. This is not going to be a Tyler Hero rip job today because Tyler's been tremendous for the Miami Heat. He was very important in getting the Miami Heat to this point. But it was very, very clear that the Cleveland Cavaliers were targeting Tyler Hero. They were looking at Tyler Hero to see where can we get this matchup. And a lot of it was done by a man who was a 6-man of the year candidate in Ty Jerome. And he was peacocking all over Tyler Hero. And it felt to me, after Tyler had a tremendous second quarter where he's giving you 12 points and he's keeping Miami around, and then he was basically not heard from in the second half of this game. And I think it's a noticeable thing because this is going to be a big test for him. We talked about what this match was going to be like, him versus Donovan Mitchell, not necessarily in an offense-defense thing, but just as far as carrying your teams. And this is going to be a bit of a next step up in weight class for him. And I thought for today, certainly we've seen better games from Tyler. This was not one where he's gonna put this one in the scrapbook as one of his fondest games. But look, the big thing about this is Miami, if they would have won this game tonight, it would have been insane. Quite frankly, if they would have won this game today, I know people will go rest versus rust, all that stuff, fine. I maybe would have felt differently if Miami would have just won one play-in game or had to just win one game and come in here today, hey, you want to steal the first game. It's not the case here. If Miami would have won this, it would have been insane, and you would have been like, wow, this is like Cleveland would have been really like panicking if they weren't able to get this one tonight. Miami's just got to get one of the first two. And I think everybody always needs a refresher in playoffs whenever we get here, okay? And there's things that I'm not going to overreact to, and there's things I'm not going to get crazy about. And in a 7-game series, I am not going to get crazy about road losses, especially when they don't pin you up against elimination. And I'm not going to get crazy about home teams starting to barrage you and hit you upside the head with 3 balls. It was a very competitive game, and it was not only a competitive game through 3 quarters, because we've been used to the Miami fourth quarter fall apart, but it was pretty much through the middle. And then they completely blitzed Miami. They had an onslaught from downtown in a game that was, I think for tonight, what did they finish on the 3 balls? It ended up being 18-13 in favor of Cleveland, but all of that basically came in the fourth quarter. Miami had the edge on the 3-point shooting tonight, But that said, that fourth quarter was insane. They were 7 of 15 from downtown. Ty Jerome was 3 of 3. Darius Garland hit a couple of big ones where he was doing the smooch, like Pepe Le Pew, giving the kiss away. And Miami was a cool 1 of 6, and one of those was the Bam Adebayo 3-ball. So, yeah, not enough there. Clearly, Tyler needs a bigger game. Bam, Bam played pretty damn good tonight, man. I mean, I would say out of the Heat standpoint, giving you 24 and 9 was big, but he also was really big in that run there. Some tough buckets from him. And then they started doubling him with Mobley. And I thought it was interesting because he was giving Mobley the business for most of the night as Evan Mobley was named a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And he put up a cool 9 points against Bam tonight. But there are no moral victories. Just wanted to point it out. But more is needed. And not just from Tyler Hero. I'm looking at Andrew Wiggins. And like Andrew Wiggins, he got off to that hot start for Miami there in the first quarter. And looked like he was on his way to doing some big things, but kind of like one of the things with Andrew where it's been like, hey, you see him for a quarter and then you never hear from him again. And I thought that that was one of the things that we got from him tonight. And then the very noticeable thing, this is going to be an interesting one in this series, is Kel'el Ware, because to me, you're talking about one of the biggest teams in the league that has a front line of Mobley and Jared Allen. And I'm not going to get after Spo on this because I thought that, yes, it was definitely, I thought Kel'el looked a little bright lights tonight where he was like, there was times where he was in the right place and the ball was just bouncing off his hand. And, there would be, you're in the right spot, but you don't know what to do, or he's chasing a little bit. But this is a huge, huge learning experience for him. And so I understood why it was limited to 20 minutes tonight, and I think he can play a lot better. I think you look at all these guys, and I think that if you look at it, you're like, did these guys give their best punch tonight? No. Now they get a couple of days off. Obviously, there's a little bit in tune because, you go down 0-2 in any series. It's a tough ask. You want to feel like if you're Miami, you're going to go home feeling like you did your job. And that's why Wednesday is going to be important. But also you get to fuel up a little bit. You get to try and figure some things out on what went wrong. They went shoot a barrage against the Heat zone today. And I felt like from Miami's standpoint, there's going to have to be a time where some guys are just going to have to take this experience and do better from it. I thought from the bench standpoint, still a pretty solid game from Davion Mitchell tonight. And really was like the only guy in the fourth quarter after that stint started that was scoring for Miami and was just cutting to the rim and making things happen. So I still think that he looks to be important in this. I don't know, like, is this a point where Spo pushes some different buttons of like, bringing in a Nico or things like that? I do wonder though, when you see a guy like Davion get into foul trouble, and play with 4 fouls, like who else are they going to have to throw at Donovan Mitchell? Because Donovan Mitchell, I mean, this is one of those games tonight. He had everything at the rim working and really didn't have his 3-point shot up until his last couple. He was ice cold, but man, he threw some. I mean, he had some action going to the rim today, dude. Like some reverse layups. He was throwing out the bag of tricks today on the Miami Heat. So props to him. And then you had a little bit of a dust up here at the in the middle of the fourth quarter where Duncan gets a foul. He fouls, I think it was Ty Jerome, on a screen, and he's like, "That's not a foul," and he was upset with the ref. And Donovan Mitchell just kind of comes over and shoves him like with one arm, not like a vicious one, but kind of just gives him the annoying one. Duncan like looks at the official like, "Hey, you're not going to do anything about that." I thought that was BS. I thought that the look, obvious, and I really want to stick up for Duncan here. All right, this dude will just go about minding his own business, and officials will just be like calling fouls on him. And I'm not saying he didn't deserve a foul call here, but you also need to be like keeping the star in check. He can't just go there and push Duncan Robinson. And like really nothing came from it. Like, Duncan was just, like, flabbergasted. But I hope when that's looked up on film, like, I hope, like, that's noticed the next time around. Because, look, the Heat just got through 2 games in this play-in against definitely inferior competition to what they're now taking on. This is a team that, like, hey, classic game where Ty Jerome, who averages just over a 3 a game, just hammers you over the head with 5 of them. Next time it could be Max Strus. Next time it could be Merrill. Next time it could be, who knows? It could be the game where Spida's on from D. Mobley could get it going a little bit more. They have waves and waves of talent. Miami is going to need guys to bring it every single night. They can't just have a game where it's like Bam and Davion kept together. There's always going to have to be a third guy who was there. Tonight it was Mitchell, Garland, and it was Ty Jerome. Miami tonight, it was pretty much Bam, Tyler for a quarter, Andrew for a quarter, and then we never really heard of those two the rest of the way. So, you know, there's still a lot, but I think there's a lot of places where Miami can improve too. You know, for the most part tonight, I thought that they held pretty well and were within striking distance with Cleveland, but it's a dangerous game when you're like always flirting like 6-8 and 2 mistakes go your way. It's a double-digit game, and then the floodgates open. So I think that's something to definitely keep in mind this next time around once we get to the game. I'm curious to see if there's going to be any retribution or if this gets to be a friskier series because, yeah, look, for Tyler, this is one of those moments for him as a player, right, where he's gotten all the flowers and he's gotten all the praise and he has dealt with a lot of adversity and he has risen to every single challenge. Well, the challenges don't stop now that you've gotten to the playoffs. The challenges don't stop once you got to the All-Star game. Now you have, once again, what do everybody say about you, Tyler? Can he do it in the playoffs? Can he handle teams picking on him? Can he handle teams attacking him? And then can he handle it physically on the other side? And I'm curious to see how he rises to the occasion because for the most part, Tyler Herro's had an answer for every single one of those this year. So, well, yeah, that fourth quarter was ugly, and he didn't do much in the second half of this game. I still think the opportunity, I'm excited to see what he does with this opportunity. I'm excited to see what Kel'el can do after his first experience. Didn't go so hot in the playoffs. It was not the brightest game. Andrew Wiggins, hey, you know, everybody keeps talking about Andrew Wiggins, sneaky great in the playoffs. You need a little bit more juice from him. Bam, can he keep up this consistency? Because, yeah, they're going to probably need this version of Bam Adebayo plus some. And that's a big ask, but tough, dude. That's what face of the franchise stuff does. You're pissed about Evan Mobley being a Defensive Player of the Year finalist? Keep cooking him with those jumpers, man. Keep giving him everything that you can. Also, don't leave free throws on the line. Like, you know, that's another thing. Like, you can't afford to have those points left on the board tonight for Miami, and they were. But, you know, all in all, not shook. I think Miami's still gaming this thing, and but Wednesday's obviously a monster for Miami, and excited to see what they can do with that opportunity.